We're interrupting this program in order to begin our regularly scheduled broadcast. Thanks for watching the Lit TV Network.
Welcome to Building Your Capacity with Reverend Dr. MLK Raven. I'm excited that you're joining us tonight. You may see from the scenery behind me, I am not in a studio and I'm not in regular places that I usually am. I'm actually in Hilton Head, South Carolina. We're beginning to celebrate one of my son's 21st birthday. But I have this coat on because it's cold. It is so cold today, but we have a warm heart no matter how cold it is, because I get to introduce you to one of my closest friends, really my best friend, Pamela Stevenson, State Representative, Kentucky State Representative Pamela Stevenson. I'd like you to get to know her. She has totally made my life better. And her heart is to improve and to build the capacity of everyone that she comes in contact with. She really loves people. She's good at what she does. And I want you to get to know her a little bit tonight. Representative Stevenson, will you join us, please?
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me. It's so exciting.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Would you please tell us a bit about your childhood, about growing up, your family, community?
Oh, absolutely. I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, my mom had 14 brothers and sisters. We call them the French 15.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my grandmother, she dropped out of school in the 6th grade. And at the age of 14, she got married to my grandfather. He had come up from Alabama to Louisville. He rode a train at the age of 14 to Louisville, and he put his stake in the ground in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
They started the church that I currently attend, which is Oak Grove Missionary Baptist Church, in their living room with 6 people.
Wow.
And so then they started having babies.
Lots of babies, sounds like.
Lots of babies, 15. And so my mother is like number 8.
Okay.
And she had me when she was 17. Okay. So my grandmother took care of me. Okay. And my grandmother loved me.
Aww.
She just adored me. I could do no wrong. All I had to do was point to the other kids and they would get in trouble.
I love that.
Yeah. So my grandmother had a dream. She wanted me to finish school because she didn't finish school. Mm-hmm. So she earned 10 cents a week.
Wow.
She did extra cleaning. She cooked food. She cleaned people's yards and stuff to earn 10 cents a week while raising her kids so that she could put an insurance policy on me. Wow. And I remember this insurance man is when they used to have the big accordion files.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they go house to house and they take your money and they mark it down in the book.
Uh-huh.
And she did that for me. And then she died in 1964 unexpectedly because she couldn't get treatment at a local hospital.
Okay.
And when I turned 18, the insurance company presented me with the policy that she had started for me.
Oh, wow.
So my grandmother had a dream for me when I couldn't dream for myself.
Wow.
She was looking to build me up when I didn't even know in the 60s what that meant.
Wow.
So, and my father has 3 brothers and sisters, and they always lived within walking distance.
Wow.
From the house. So in the 60s, there were not a lot of places for Black folk to meet.
Uh-huh.
So our house was the meeting place.
Okay.
The kids were upstairs and the adults were in the basement. And the number 1 rule was don't come in the basement. If we needed something, we had to knock on the door and one of the adults would come up.
Okay.
But we had a lot of fun. We had all the food we wanted to eat. We had cousins. We watched TV, and we grew very, very close.
Wow.
And we ultimately spread out over the United States. So we have Frenches everywhere,
Mhm.
primarily in Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow.
So
That's so amazing. A wonderful family background, connected, and so
mhm,
you know the importance of family and the importance of people pouring into others, right? That's so
absolutely.
important, so important. So you told us a little bit about your family. Tell us about a childhood memory.
Well, I have great memories. We didn't know we were broke, like broker than broke, because my mom and dad did whatever it took to make sure that we had plenty of food. Um, they even made up some dishes like spaghetti and ketchup because we couldn't afford tomato sauce. We thought, okay, this
Okay.
is really good. And my dad still cooks that for me. Although I tell him, okay, we've grown up. I will buy the ragu. Um, we, I remember two things with my grandmother, Lucy Mae French. I always tell everybody, be a Lucy in somebody's life.
Uh,
To give someone who can't dream for themselves the opportunity to have a life, because you can see things that they can't see.
uh-huh.
But two things. My mom used to take me up to my grandmother's every morning so she could babysit.
Uh-huh.
And every morning I had to stop. And there was this bush that was a flower bush that
Okay.
leaned over into my grandmother's yard. And every morning I had to get her a flower.
Oh.
Every morning. And so my mother, even though she's always rushing to work, she knew I had to do it. So she would let me stop and do it. And I would hand it to my grandmother. And she would act like it was the first time I had ever done that.
Oh.
And she would say, oh, it's so beautiful, just like you. And the children that were still at home would say, she stole it. And my grandma would say, hush, this child didn't steal anything. It's a beautiful flower. And I always remember that because in her eyes, I could do no wrong.
Oh.
And then the second thing is my grandmother
Mm-hmm.
would walk me places when I got a little bit older.
Uh-huh.
I remember one time, because we didn't have a car. And I remember one time she pushed my head down and she said, don't look.
Uh-huh.
And she said, I didn't know, because of course she said, don't look. And I'm trying to look, like
Right.
look up on
Yeah,
her
yeah,
hand.
we'll see.
She said, you
Mhm.
can't look at white people. And I didn't know what a white people was.
Right. Yeah.
But in her era, you do not do that. And she wanted to make sure I was safe. So she taught me what she thought it was to be safe.
Uh,
And she said, just
wow.
don't look.
Right.
And to this day, I remember that because I was looking to see what is a white person.
Wow. Yeah.
And
That's interesting. That you remember that as a childhood memory, and that as you've lived your life, that you reach out to all people.
I
Yeah.
know. It's really interesting. Like I have just engaged with so many different type of people and
Right.
so many different type of philosophies about life. And people, I will say one thing: people are predictably people. I
Yeah.
always say, dogs bark and people.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that, it saves me a lot of anguish
Right.
about what people do or what they don't do.
Right. I love that. I love that. So you grew up in Louisville. You went to, I guess, high school in Louisville. Uh-huh. And then
And
and
I have to
then
stand for my people in Louisville. Yes, I went to the Brown School. That's the number one question in Louisville, Kentucky. What high school did you go to? They don't care this, sir, that I was in the Air Force for 27 years. It's
oh,
like, what high school did you go to?
oh, okay, that's a big thing. Okay. So repeat the high school. What high school was it?
It's Brown School. And I went to Shawnee Elementary before I
Okay.
went to Brown.
Okay. All right. All right. But we've documented that. So so everybody will know. So after you graduated from Brown, right? Brown, where did you go to college? Where did you go to college?
I got a full ROTC scholarship. And
Wow.
I went to Indiana University in Bloomington.
Okay. All right.
And that's 2 hours away. And my
Mhm.
parents came up every weekend. It was pretty cool. I didn't know that I was supposed to be wild at college. I was just glad that my parents came to see me every weekend.
Uh-huh.
And by the time I was a second-year student at
Uh-huh.
Indiana University, they came up. And sometimes they would call me after they checked into the hotel.
Oh.
And they were at dinner. They were like, hey, we're at dinner. You want to join us? But I was happy because my mom wanted to go to college. And she did. But she didn't complete because she had 4 kids.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so me being the first one to go was her opportunity to be on the college campus. And they loved it.
Yeah.
And so I was there, and I loved Bloomington because I stayed there for law school.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and that's where I met my husband.
Ah.
Right before I went into law school, this is what happens. I had made up my mind. I'm not going to get married. I'm going to get my career started, and then I'm going to finish law school strong.
Okay. Right.
And as soon as I made that declaration, I met him.
Thomas, right?
Right, Thomas.
Uh-huh.
And he was a nice guy, but I'm like, I'm not interested.
Uh-huh.
And his line, not the best line ever. His
Okay,
line.
what was his line? You got to share it with us.
Well, he said, well, you would be prettier if you would stop frowning.
That was his line?
His line. And I'm like, I was frowning because I didn't want you to come over here with my girls.
Stay away, stay away.
Yeah, we're having a good time. I'm like, who's this guy? And I'm like, that's the worst pickup line I ever heard. He said it wasn't a pickup line, it was true.
And that one thing, right? Because I've heard this story. That one thing that he was willing to tell you truth no matter what, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. So we had a conversation, and then I thought, okay, I'm done with him. And after that, he called and asked me for a date, and I'm like, I don't date people that think I'm not pretty. And he was like, I think you're beautiful.
Oh,
Like, okay, well, maybe I'll let you take me on a date.
I love it.
So he took me on a date on a picnic. And that's when I got hooked. It wasn't a traditional date. He had figured out what would touch my heart. And a picnic would. It was fun.
Yeah.
And that was 40 years ago.
Wow.
And I might keep him another 40 years. He's getting,
another 40? Yeah.
Yeah, getting crankety. And
I love it. I love it. So you went to law school. In Indiana, and then after that, what's next? What happened next for you?
Well, what happened next was I went to, I had already had ROTC scholarship, and so I came on active duty.
Okay.
And in the Air Force, and I came on active duty as an adjutant in a flying squadron, which is like an executive officer.
Okay.
I was responsible at an early age for leading people. I had 5 people that were my responsibility.
Okay.
And I did that. And then I was a section commander for a maintenance squadron. And this is a squadron that repairs all the airplanes and whatever needs to be done. And this was a large squadron.
Yeah.
And I was the lieutenant that was responsible for it. And then I transferred over to the JAG Corps and became a JAG.
Okay, let's go back a little bit, because I think sometimes people who haven't experienced the military, hadn't been in the military, or even those that have had some connection with the military, don't understand that full experience. So, what age were you when you went into the military?
21.
21. Okay, and you started out as an adjutant, and then you were a section commander at a maintenance squadron.
22.
Tell us like that was. Tell us how that was.
The maintenance squadron had hundreds of people that were responsible. Each one of them had a role in the fixing the plane or maintaining the plane. And we sent them to school to learn how to do the engine, how to do the wings, how to do whatever part of the plane they were responsible for.
Okay.
And we had to make sure that the plane stayed in the air. We had to make sure that whatever the wing commander wanted to do, whatever the mission was, the planes were ready. Mm-hmm. And so my boss was a major, and we were responsible for making sure that everybody had what they needed to meet the needs of America.
Yeah.
So if there were a strike that were called, if we had to send planes somewhere, if we had to enter into a conflict, we had to make sure that the planes were ready and the people that staff those planes were ready. And it's a huge operation. It's hundreds of people, and this was out in California, which is where a lot of the planes were, especially the training bases, because you have to have good weather to train to make sure the training goes through.
Yeah. So you at 21 were officer in this huge maintenance squadron.
Yeah.
So not many women, right?
Oh no, not many women, and oftentimes people confuse me with enlisted because I was
Uh-huh.
black. They just saw black and assume enlisted.
Right.
And
Right.
there's two different, for those of you who are not familiar with the military, there's two different extraordinary pathways. You can either be sworn in as an enlisted person, and you go from E1 all the way up to Chief Master Sergeant, or you can take the oath and go in as an officer, and you start as a lieutenant, and you can go all the way up to general.
Right.
And both of them are extraordinary tracks, depending on what you want in life. I went in as an officer, and it was not many women in 1984.
Uh-huh.
And it was not many black folk as officers in 1984.
Right. Right. So yeah. So you had that experience of being in leadership and leading all types of folks,
Yeah.
all ages, all all colors, as they would say, and all different cultures and backgrounds, even at the early age of your 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's an amazing experience, to have that. So you were an adjutant, then a section commander, and although you had gone to law school, so how did you then become a JAG, or when did that happen? Tell us about that.
Well, that's persistence.
Okay.
For a reason, I was going to say for unknown reason. I know the reason, but for a reason, I was not admitted into the JAG Corps. And my position was, you can always tell me no, but I'm not going to tell me no.
Right. I love that.
So I would always apply to become a JAG officer because I was a fully qualified lawyer.
Yeah.
And finally, the last time I applied, with a little extra push, I was admitted into the JAG Corps, and I went to become a JAG officer in October 1986.
All right.
The 3rd of October, in fact.
Yeah. An amazing day, and good on the Air Force of recognizing your talent and your leadership ability, and so you became a JAG. Tell us about some of your assignments.
Well, as a JAG officer, I started off in California, and I remember so clearly. This is why I love this show, building the capacity of people, because the one person that you can count on to build capacity is yourself. You've got to stand for yourself. And so when I became a JAG officer, I was a young lieutenant, a young captain, and I had been a JAG for 6 months, and I marched into the boss's office and I said, I would like to run this section.
I love it.
It was the most difficult section ever to run.
Uh-huh.
And he knew it, but he didn't want to damage my hopes and my dreams.
Uh-huh.
So he did something that to this day, I now see and I recognize him for. He said, I'm going to run the section so that he would not harm my ambition, my desire to do good. And he let me work in the section. Now I'm thinking, looking back, it would have been a disaster.
Right. Gotcha.
Because at 6 months, I didn't have the skill sets to actually do that job. I just thought I had it.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's such an important lesson, and we'll go back to that to the rest of your story in a minute. But that idea of having the confidence in yourself, knowing your abilities, and knowing, being confident that you can do things, but recognizing timing.
Exactly.
Talk to that. Yeah.
That's why you have to have people around you that you trust. So when they say left, you go left. You don't fight with everybody. You don't argue with everybody. People can see outside of you. And if he looked at me and he saw the promise.
Yeah.
He said, but not right now. And how do I navigate this so that she continues to grow to reach that promise without killing her? Some people kill people's spirits and they don't even know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people don't recover because we're really good at hiding when we have a spirit that's harmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that. I worked under him for a number of years. Then he made me chief of civil law, which is anything not criminal.
Yeah.
I got to handle. And I enjoyed that. And then after that, I became a criminal defense attorney where I actually defended people who were accused of crimes. And I traveled around defending people who were accused of crimes.
Yeah.
And after I did that, which I loved, I believe in the Constitution, for the people, by the people, to serve the people, jury trial, all of it.
Yeah.
That this country is based on every life matters. And inside of that, if we're going to have a judicial system where we rob people of their rights, or we take their freedoms, then we need to have a system that's going to protect that. And our system did that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were, can you remember, without revealing too much, one of your cases, one thing that stood out, one of your defense cases?
There's two. One of them, this one is not a good memory, but it is one that haunts me.
Okay.
I had a 10-year-old girl and her father was accused of sexually molesting her. And he was a military member. And while we were preparing her testimony, she asked me, could she give me some pointers on different sexual positions?
Oh, wow.
And I was stunned.
Oh, wow.
First of all, why do I look like I need help? But second of all, that this child even knew those words, let me know we were on the right track.
Wow. So sad.
And that one is like, she will never have a childhood.
Yeah.
Gone, take it.
Yeah.
And so I remember that one, and it's in my head when she turned to me and asked me that question.
Right.
And she was a child. She didn't know she was indicting her father.
Right.
She just thought every child had those experiences, and she really wanted to be helpful.
Wow.
So, excuse me. So I let her talk.
Right.
And then we got her counseling and all that. But she was still in the mindset that her dad was just raising her.
Wow. Yeah, that's really sad.
That one is really sad. And then my other fond memory is when I was a defense counsel, I smile all the time.
Yeah.
It's just who I am. And the one time I tried not to smile and to be gruff because my boss said, you will never make it in this man's Air Force if you don't stop smiling.
Oh,
so
wow.
I started, get me this, get me that. And the office took a vote and had the court reporter come in and say, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And when I told them what was wrong, they just laughed. They were like, you just got to be you.
Yeah.
But the one case I was defending, it was a tough case. And I smiled and I worked with I was a prosecutor. I smiled and I worked with the defense counsel.
Yeah.
And he didn't prepare. After the trial was over, he said, I will never, ever do that again. I just assumed because you smiled all the time that translated into how well you prepared.
Oh, wow.
And what I discovered is I mopped the floor with him. Like mop. Somebody get me another mop. And then I smiled.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I discovered in my whole Air Force career, because I do smile so much, people took my kindness for weakness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fine, because they found out.
Yeah. Yeah, they misunderstand it. So two things that you said in that. One is being yourself. How important is that in building your capacity? I mean, there's so many great people, and you can look at their stories and how they did it and all of those things, but be yourself, right? Yeah.
Be yourself is it. Everybody else is taken.
Yeah.
Why would you try to be something you're not? People hate, although they may not voice it, they can smell a fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people want authentic, real communications. They want to know you believe what you say and you say what you believe.
Right.
And
Right.
it's very hard to do that if you're trying to be something you're not.
Yeah, that's really good, really good. And then the other piece that you brought out is assuming things about people.
Mhm.
Even this idea, okay, she smiles a lot, so maybe she's not prepared, or whatever we see on the outside. So many people don't take the time to get to know a person. You just make assumptions and work off of that. That's troubling.
And my dad and mom, they are, thank God they're still with us. And my dad taught us that they saved for a whole year to take us on a family vacation. They thought it was important. And
Hmm.
we would drive somewhere and we would eat Vienna sausages in the car, Vienna sausages in the hotel room, but we didn't care. We were on the beach.
Right. I got
And
it.
my dad would talk to anybody and everybody.
Hmm.
He would talk to the drunk person on the corner. He would talk to the clerk in the store to get the Vienna sausages. And he would tell us, everybody has a story.
Uh-huh.
Everybody has something going on. And
Yeah.
your job is to be kind and to listen.
I love that. Be kind and to listen. If everybody could get that, right? And
Yeah.
connect with people at that level that everybody is worthy to be heard and to be connected with. They're of value. Yeah.
My dad has a business right now, and he has a ministry where he goes out into the streets and he hires people that are having different issues with
Uh-huh.
abuses or whatever they might have an issue with.
Right.
He sees them
Yeah.
and he offers them a job
Uh-huh.
picking up trash. He has a trash pickup company.
Yeah.
And he's like, everybody can pick up trash.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they can have some value. They can feel like they're contributing to society. And
That's
that's
it.
really what everybody wants, right?
That's,
Yeah.
it's so funny you brought that up because what I discovered in 27 years of being in the Air Force and being in 11 countries and serving in the Middle East, Africa, Germany, Italy, all over, is that as human beings, we are the same
Yeah.
in many respects. We want the same three things. We want our lives to matter. We
Yeah.
want our children to do better, and we want to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you boil it down to that, if we could just focus on those three things, all this other stuff that we fight about,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have time for.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So you were in the military. You were doing defense work. Then you said you were doing a prosecution. You were a
Oh yeah, I
prosecutor.
did prosecution. Then I was a commissioner for the appellate courts.
Okay, tell us about that.
Washington, D.C. Well, there were 9 judges, and I was the only captain. And I got to write some opinions, and my job was to run the court to make sure that all the opinions got out on